It's time for Done Being Single with your hosts, Trevor and Robbie Sharf. If you're dating the same type over and over again, making the same mistakes and not finding love, then you're not done being single. What you need is some tough love dating intervention, Trevor and Robbie style. Whether you're new to dating or have been dating forever, we've got you covered. Now, here are your hosts, Trevor and Robbie Sharf.
How are you?
I'm good, sweetie.
Sweetie.
So how's everything going?
You're funny.
I know.
Nice to see you.
Oh, nice to see you too. I haven't seen you
it's
since
been a while.
almost breakfast.
Since, I don't know, a few minutes ago. But nice to see you here. Nice to see us here.
Right. We're not here that often.
No, we're not.
These days, are we?
No.
But we're here when we want to be.
Yes.
I guess we want to be here today.
We do. Well, there's a lot to talk about in the world of...
Like what?
I don't know, dating, life, being single, relationships.
I'm so happy I'm only part
My
of one
book.
of those. Oh.
Shameless plug.
Nice plug. Very
Thank you.
nice. Yes.
Thank you. Why, thank you, doctor. Nice plugs.
What's going on?
Well, this is happening. You're happening. We're happening.
We are happening.
There's as I
Life
was
is
saying, there's a lot going on in the world of dating and love, and shit's happening.
Well,
Things are changing. Some things
seasons are changing.
Yeah, well,
weather?
no, really. I'll tell you what's changing. It's now cool for a woman to approach a man.
It wasn't before?
Not really. Not in my dating days. It was a no-no.
You mean, are we talking in real life? Or are we talking
In real life,
online?
no.
Is
This is what I'm seeing and out there and reading is that
at a bar, at a party,
yeah,
women go up to guys now and say, "Hey,
yeah,
I like you. You're cute.
yes."
What's your Instagram?"
Because men, it's too fraught. It's too tricky out there for guys, and women don't appreciate it. And it's now becoming a little bit of a minefield out there because of Me Too.
So how are men reacting
and
to
just
this?
Empowered women, and the dynamics are shifting. This is a whole other episode. We should probably
How are
not talk
how are
about
men
this.
reacting to this?
I think men appreciate it when women express some interest, and they don't have to guess, and they don't have to put themselves out there and risk rejection. But it's a weird thing for people of a certain age who grew up, no. Remember back in the days where you would drop a hanky and you would, bat your eyes.
That's
and,
your mother's
right.
days, yes.
But I came from that generation, as did you. And
She's
this
still
is,
dropping hanky somewhere. You know that.
where's the sound
Sonia,
effect?
which one?
No.
Okay, no, all right. Well, no, you mean
No. Although yes. Yes.
our
No.
son.
The other
okay,
one.
I don't
Your
know.
favorite. Yes.
Oh, that one. Okay, sorry.
Sorry, Mom. You know what?
We only mean
Come
that
on.
with love.
We love her. We love you. But
We love her.
boy, we did have some
Yes.
fun with that sound
Okay,
effect.
so, but in the same way that, where men may have been a little insecure when they do go up to a woman, is that happening on the women's side when they go up to a man these days? They don't know how the man will react, but they're not thinking about that because they're taking the initiative and wanting to meet that person.
Yes.
So, men are the same way. They don't know how the woman's going to react, but they want to go up.
Hey man, it's called flirting. It's a risk. It's a chance you take. You flirt. I
have no problem with
This
that.
is what courtship's all about. Although that's another episode we can talk about, the death of courtship, because nobody courts anymore. We're all online. Nobody,
Let's have an episode about episodes we're not going to have.
episodes about future episodes. This is great. I'm coming up with a ton of
Oh
shows
my
right
God.
now.
You should take some better
Then
notes
this
there.
is all great food for thought. But anyway,
Okay, yeah.
so because let's bring it back to the subject at hand, because we're going to talk about boundaries today, amongst other things. But we have a guest who really specializes in boundary setting, and I'm a big believer in boundaries. In fact, I talk about it in my book, Done Being Single, A Late Bloomer's Guide to Blood. To blood. A Late Bloomer's Guide to love.
That's the second chapter.
I talk about it in great detail. Boundaries. Boundaries are lifesavers. Boundaries are, oh my gosh, they are your best friends.
Are they?
Yes.
Boundaries are?
Yes.
I never knew that.
Because we don't have any. That's why. On this show, we don't.
Sure we do.
Ask our guests that.
Well, we have boundaries. We don't go totally off.
No, we're good. We're funny. We're fun.
Well, that's for them to think.
Yeah, well.
Or say.
Anyway, so your boundaries, okay. They come in handy. Boy, I'll tell you what, whether you're dating or with your family, your friends even, you got to have them. Or else you'll get walked all over, taken advantage of, manipulated, name it. Okay? So we're gonna get into all this.
Wonderful.
Okay? Because some people don't know how to set boundaries. I didn't know what a boundary was. Because we had none growing up.
But you do now?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
and
really?
And I should mention, they're still challenging.
Yes.
Okay.
Especially for your husband.
Well, yeah, you are a good enforcer or a reminder, or, you'll tell me, like, whatever you have to say, like, don't answer the phone, or get off the phone, or don't talk about that, or, too much time, or
call them back,
or say no. Oh my God. Say no.
Yeah. Huh?
Say no.
The power of no.
That's another episode. No, but we're going to talk about that today.
Oh, geez.
All right. Let's do it.
Who we have on today?
Okay. Bex Burton.
Oh.
Is not only an expert in boundary setting, she's a returning champ. I think she's been on the show a couple times. Maybe this is her second or third, and we love her. That's why we had her back. And let me tell you a little bit about her. If you have forgotten, Bex Burton is a dating and relationships communications expert and a trauma-informed, double certified life coach.
Double.
Yeah, she is. Yeah, she means business.
She's not just a single one. She's
No,
a double one.
She helps singles express themselves authentically and create meaningful romantic connections. And she's with us today. And here she is, woman of the hour, Bex Burton.
Hi, Bex. Welcome
back. Hey, you too.
How are ya?
Oh, thank you. It's so great to be here with you guys. It just brings such a big smile to my face.
You sure about that? Or are you just...
You're just saying that.
Are you just humoring
trying
us?
to plug her book again. All right.
I got one too. Here you go.
Oh, look at that.
I know. Oh my God, I love you so much. Thank you.
That's so
Thank you so much. That it just means a lot to me, by the way. Just want you to know. Thank you. Really, no, that's sisters helping each other out, man. I love it. Just love it. All right. So we're talking, you heard the intro, and we're talking.
Yes, I did.
How could you not? We're talking about boundaries. We have a bunch of questions for you.
I have a bunch of answers.
Okay. So
I probably have a bunch of questions too.
Okay, beautiful. I'm going to fire away with my first question, because we both work with clients who struggle with boundary setting, right? And what I'm curious about is what you see is the most common violation. I don't know if that's the word, of one's boundaries. Do they do it because they're people pleasers, out of obligation, out of guilt, fear? You tell me what you see. What's the most common?
Like the most common reason why we don't have boundaries? Is that?
Yes. Why do we break our own boundaries?
Oh yeah, for so many reasons. And I think to just set some context, boundaries, there's a misconception that boundaries are a set of rules that we want to enforce on other people, but boundaries aren't necessarily about keeping other people out or dictating how other people need to act in our presence, but boundaries are more about keeping our energy intact and protecting ourselves from the ways that people, I don't know, override our needs or cross our boundaries, cross our limits. Wow, good morning.
Yeah, no, you hit a word right on the nail on the head, self-preservation.
Yeah, thank you
That's
for
exactly
bringing.
what it is.
Yeah. So, and I think that for many people, and this is not across the board, but we either don't have boundaries or we have difficulty enforcing them because, much like you said, Treva, we have people pleasing tendencies, that we have a strong need to be liked. Again, this is not everybody, but for those of us who didn't have boundaries modeled to us as young people, or never taught, or never came across the idea of boundaries, we have a strong need to be liked, possibly from our original family origin or some trauma that's been introduced into our life, where we have a deep fear of not being loved, being abandoned, being rejected. And so that will generate an impulse within us to go above and beyond, to do whatever it takes to have that love that we really want, which can also lead to us crossing our own limits, the things that we know or don't know are in our good favor, our best favor, the ways that we need to be treated in order to feel secure, in order to feel loved, to be seen, understood. And without that knowledge of what our limits are, how we need or wish to be treated, then, as you said, people are going to walk all over us. We're going to get taken advantage of. And if we're not aware of our own boundaries with ourselves, we can also give too much. Especially, I see this a lot in new relationships where the feelings are really high and it's just so like intoxicating to spend time with this person, and all of a sudden we're giving up our family, our friends, our passions to spend more time with this person, and then we're starting to lose the best parts of ourselves and start moving towards what's called enmeshment, and no longer feeling this dividing line between what separates us from that other person. So we can have boundaries with other people, we can have boundaries with ourselves, and all of these are important to create healthy, lasting love.
Boundaries are scary for some
Yeah.
people.
Oh
Okay.
yeah.
So, and I speak from experience because I grew up without any. I
Yeah.
didn't know what
Same.
they were. I didn't, me and my parents, they were, there just wasn't any sort of safe space. So they exposed too much to me. They were too involved in my life. They made me too involved in their. It was not healthy. It was not good. And so I didn't know what they were until, and I say this in the book, until a therapist brought it to my attention, that I didn't have any boundaries, and they are, and I really do believe they're lifesavers. But the problem is that, pardon me, that we're afraid to set them because we're afraid to upset people. We're afraid to make people mad or alienate ourselves. So that's
Yeah.
my next question. How do we do it without fear?
Oh, well, is that possible? Is really the question. There's a great book that was introduced to me in my early 20s, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. Because there's this idea of overcoming fear in order to do the thing, when in fact being able to do the thing is moving through fear and doing it anyway. There's a phrase that I use in the work that I do called the butt pucker zone, which is that zone between knowing that you have to do the hard thing and actually doing it.
Yeah.
So there's the unconscious zone of not knowing what you have to do. This is not the butt pucker zone. But once we start looking at self-reflection, we start working with healing professionals, and we start recognizing like, oh, there's some work for me to do. Oh, there might be things that I need to say in order for that thing to stop happening to me, or this person to stop treating me this way. So that's the butt pucker zone, is that point from where we understand we need to take action and actually taking action. It's the space beyond our comfort zone. And it's that butt pucker zone when we can start to get a little bit more comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's how we make setting boundaries a little less terrifying. Because absolutely, I mean, there is the fear and the true risk of being rejected, of disappointing
Oh,
someone. I mean, in
yes.
my own relationship, that disappointing or inconveniencing
Yes, yes,
my
yes.
partner is like it feels like death, like a death sentence.
Yeah.
But when as we evolve and as we grow and work with healing professionals, we start to realize that we can't control whether our partner or the person that we're dating is disappointed or inconvenienced. I mean, that's on them to resolve within themselves, or between the two of us to discuss. Is there a medium? Is there a middle that we can find? But back to that buck pucker zone, it's I don't know that fear ever really goes away. And so the work is not necessarily to eradicate the fear so that we can do the thing, but to recognize, oh crap, I'm in the butt pucker zone, and just being in this place of accepting that it's uncomfortable and acknowledging that what we want often in life is just on the other side of that discomfort.
So much. Okay. First of all, I just want to say, when you said butt pucker, Robbie reached for the. Okay, and I hit him. If anybody watching this, I just went like that, and because I knew I am so in tune with him, I knew what he wanted to do. Okay, but it's an apt term because it's also when you have. I love you. Okay,
it's visceral. You feel it,
right?
When you have to lay down throw down the gauntlet or lay down the law or set your boundary, it's like death defying. You're like, you have to take a deep breath, right? Because you go, oh God, what if I upset this person or disappoint them, and what if it gets me in trouble, or what if they love me less, or there's all that shit, right? That goes through your head, but it's so necessary. And speaking of fear, you once got me a greeting card that I have tacked up on my bulletin board that says,
everything you want is on the other side of fear.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I look at it
it's on
every day.
Yeah. It's so true.
Every day it is, you have to face it in whatever it is, and it isn't easy.
Can I throw a counter out here? Of course, that's what I do. You're both being very considerate for the other person in these boundaries. What about boundaries is self-sabotaging, where someone's comfort zone is to create a boundary that actually is something for them to use as an out, to get out of something.
Explain.
Yeah, do you have an example?
Somebody may have a prejudice against a physical attribute of a woman, and they may talk about, I like this person a lot, but there's something about I can't be with her because of this, or
I get what you're saying.
So
when do boundaries become limiting? When do they become counterproductive?
And it's about yourself wanting not able to be happy in a situation that you probably should be happier in, but your path is a well-beaten path, and you're so used to having those parameters and boundaries that it creates you crack open the door so you can push it open a little bit more and have an out.
I know. I think I know what you're saying. What? Okay. So curious what you think of, and we were sort of chatting about this before we started, about people who, I don't know, you would call them like impossibly high standards. They would call them impossibly high standards, when in reality they're really not. They're really these kind of false boundaries that people.
Is it a boundary?
I don't know if it's a boundary or not. I know who you're talking about, and I know what you're talking about, and I think that has more to do with their projection of their own insecurity and low self-worth. Yeah. And I think, everything kind of circles back to your personal boundaries and fear. Let's really talk. That's really where it's at.
Yeah.
But I know. Good.
For me, what's coming up is that there's a big difference between boundaries and walls. And I think what Robbie's describing are walls where, if we are speaking to a woman who's calling in lasting love and she's got her wish list of the 666. I don't know if you know the Fab Cara, but that's where I got the 666 from. The six pack, the 6 foot tall, the 6-figure income. And she might say that those are her boundaries or her standards. But I think that the difference between boundaries and walls are that walls are more like limitations on what we are able to receive, versus boundaries are expressions to support the limitation of harm. And I think that walls, there's less harm involved with the walls that there's certainly more harm with the walls that we put up, but they're not based on protecting ourselves from harm, versus boundaries are absolutely protecting ourselves from harm, toxic behavior, or things that tear away at the fiber of who we are.
I think that's a good stipulation about it. That boundaries, again, I think show consideration for the other person. Walls are what you put up for yourself as protection in some way. So, thank you for clarifying that.
And I think boundaries. So, and further, walls keep people out, versus boundaries keep a healthy fence line. Maybe that's it. Like the wall is like this concrete cement 12-foot high, there is no passing, versus a boundary is more like a chain link fence where you can, there's conversation, there's dialogue, there's seeing one another through that structure, but it is also meant to keep some, protect us from some behavior, keep some behavior out.
How pliable is a boundary compared to this 12-foot concrete structure wall? I mean, are both of them able to be, climbed over, gotten around somehow? Can people amend them?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, for me, I think, the very essence of a boundary conversation is that doesn't work for me. My preference is, or what does work for me is, fill in the blank. So it's a dialogue. It's a conversation more so than a wall is just like, no, period, block, exit,
My definition of boundaries are, how much am I willing to let you do to me? And how much am I willing to take, I guess. Is that sort of, right? What am I willing to allow someone to do to me or say to me or treat me? And then how much am I allowing myself to accept that? How much am I willing to accept? Or how much am I willing to give? That's another version of it.
Okay. Incorporating that, Bex, what is a good response to somebody that you feel has broken through a boundary for yourself?
Yeah, sure. I that can fluctuate. When my clients are first learning boundaries, we work with the blanket statement, that doesn't work for me. If they have a hard time saying that, we soften it a little bit. I'm sorry, that doesn't work for me. We try to move our people pleasers away from over apologizing though. But as we're learning, as we're getting our boundary feet, we may need that I'm sorry crutch, but that doesn't work for me is a very neutral statement. Mm-hmm. Anyone who has not had boundaries or is a people pleaser or needs, has this great need to be liked, or really has a hard time defining that line between the other person and themselves, is going to feel like that phrase is selfish, mean, because that's our lens. Our lens is not, our lens and our habit is not to stand up for ourselves and not to express our needs, because traditionally, historically, our needs have not been honored. Our needs have not been acknowledged, and certainly not celebrated or upheld. So for somebody learning boundaries, this phrase, that doesn't work for me, is going to be squarely in the butt pucker zone.
That also might be, sorry.
Yeah.
No, I was
just going to say, but that's a good place to start.
That sounds like it's entering the wall area though. That doesn't work for me, I've got a wall about that. So Is that a little confrontational? Is it a little bit of, a stop sign to somebody that's, lets that person know you're overstepping in an area
I
that
mean, it's
I'm not
definitely a
comfortable
yellow
with?
light for sure. And following that doesn't work for me. The second phrase, what does work for me, or any iteration of. Sometimes I'll teach my clients to say my preference is, or it would really make me feel comfortable if we could,
That's much more
or
positive sounding.
it would make me happy if we could do it this way. So I think it's
Okay.
a two-part statement, but it starts with that iteration of no, no, thank you. That doesn't work for me.
What's a common boundary breaker? What is a common um, subject that gets broken in boundaries?
Uh,
Is it space?
wow.
Is it
Physical
um,
space, sure.
physical space? Is it over comfortability too soon? Is it something that uh, I don't know, over familiarity? Something that causes the other person just to feel uncomfortable. That's a
Sure.
little too
Yeah.
soon to ask that question, or you're getting a little too close to me, or I'm not ready to kiss you, or I don't know what too.
Yeah, we can have boundaries in a number of different pillars. We absolutely physical boundaries. We might be seeing somebody new who is like super into public displays of affection to the point that it makes us feel uncomfortable. So, there's a physical boundary there. Emotional boundaries, language boundaries. We might be, I think we may have all been in a scenario where somebody we've just met is giving us a lot of personal information and a lot of backstory about their tumultuous life that we just don't know what to do with.
TMI.
And that's a both a boundary and both an emotional and a language boundary.
I'm curious, how do you help your clients who have no boundaries with themselves? And I'm specifically thinking about negative self-talk. Let's just start with that.
Yeah.
Because I have to set boundaries with myself in terms of how much I allow myself to worry,
Yeah.
or how much I allow myself to panic, or those are your own boundaries with yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah. And relationally, what I see a lot is boundaries with ourselves, with how much time we are choosing to give this new partner, where, we might be spending days on end or having, phone calls that last hours and hours because it feels good. It's not that that person is crossing our boundaries, but we may be crossing our own boundaries for our own time needs. Um, so there's two things. The very first step is awareness. If we're not aware that we have this negative self-talk, if we're not aware that we're in a worry spiral, then there's no change possible. So first is awareness. And second, well, it's really a tool to help develop awareness, but also to help manage the next steps, is mindfulness. And mindfulness is the gentle awareness and calling ourselves back to the present moment,
Mm-hmm.
away from the negative self-talk, away from the worry, and back to whatever anchor we choose. Maybe it's our breath, or maybe it's feeling our feet on the ground. But from that place of presence, we can make different choices. So oftentimes I'll um, lead clients through a process of mindfulness where we're starting to identify emotion as it arises. Because in my book, emotions are the messengers of our needs, whether they're being met or unmet. So if a client is feeling, I spoke with a client the other day, and she is with a new partner and they've been together for a few weeks. And all of a sudden she's feeling suffocated. She feels like her walls are closing in. And we're talking about how much time they're spending together. And she has this assumption that she needs to spend all of this time with this person, when in fact, as we all know, healthy relationships are a dance of space and closeness. And she's not getting the space that she needs to be her best self in this relationship. So through the practice of mindfulness, she's becoming aware of this feeling of the walls closing in on her. And then she can kind of unwind that feeling and ask herself, what are my needs here? Are my needs being met? Well, my needs for connection and intimacy, those are definitely being met, but my needs for space, my needs for individuality, my needs for autonomy are not being met. So then we can, take that pause and make different choices.
I think you said the right word, mindfulness, which is that's a tall order for some people who are just not even willing to be mindful or lack some self-awareness or that willing, because we know people that it's too scary to reflect. They don't want to look at it. They don't want to look at their stuff. But I would say to people that are tuning in and don't really, are unfamiliar with boundaries, I would say that there are some sort of like a checklist you can feel. You can actually feel if you don't really know what boundaries are, you can feel it. Your body will tell you, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So, right. So here's some signs that you might be crossing your own boundaries. You feel like maybe you get something in your stomach where you either get like a knot or a pit or something in your gut,
or your butt puckers.
Yeah, or you feel like I don't like what I just did. I just did something I shouldn't have done. I crossed a boundary, or I let someone cross my boundary, and it just doesn't feel good. And maybe your heart starts racing, or maybe you just feel like a sense of shame and it doesn't feel good, and you are mad at yourself because you let that person do a certain something, or you have a sense of like ungroundedness or untetheredness, like you don't, I'm hearkening back to some of the things that I know that were my physical cues that I knew I was doing something not good for myself.
Right.
And where is more like, where am I? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Please.
Sorry.
Can you let her talk a little bit? I mean,
yeah.
No.
Well, you're on such a great tip. I hate to interrupt you, but as we develop that sense of mindfulness, our needs represent in various different ways, different somatic manifestations, the physical sensations that you're talking about. And those physical sensations they'll arise before the emotion is even present. They're so linked. And when we can start to clue in to those physical sensations, that can help us lead to what the emotion is. For a very long time, for me in various different parts of my life, I would get this stinging sensation behind my eyes, like in my forehead. And it took me a really long time first to even identify it. But then when I started to clue into that feeling and started to just slow things down and pay attention to what is the emotion behind this, I started to recognize that stinging sensation behind my eyes was my messenger for shame. That was how shame manifested in a somatic sense in my body.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So you're totally right. There's plenty of people who are unwilling or afraid to do this self-reflection, to do this work, because it is painful and it can bring up really horrible things from our history, which is why it's really good to partner with healing professionals who know their stuff, who can hold your hand and help us through the fallout of this self-discovery. Because it is uncomfortable. It's going to put us in the butt pucker zone, and we want to feel safe and held and seen and understood as we do this work.
I
describing a lot of our friends.
Oh yes. There's it's all upside. Boundary setting is just, again, the most self-loving, self-respecting thing you could ever do. And people just need to, like I said, take a deep breath. What's the saying? Breathe. Oh shit. Leap and the net shall appear. That's one of my favorite sayings of mine. Leap in the net. Set your boundaries, and the net will appear.
Okay.
Right.
You should hope that. You better hope that
you
the
can't.
net appears.
People will respect you.
I think there's something to be said about that. Where if we can get really clean about the way that we communicate our boundaries, what we receive from the other person is straight up data at that point. Because somebody will either say thank you, and modify their behavior or, understand that that's a boundary. It doesn't mean that they're not going to cross that boundary again, but at least they're hearing you, they're understanding you, or they're going to respond in other ways. They're going to distract us from the conversation. They're going to deflect and change the topic, or they're going to dissuade you. They're going to try to argue you out of your reasons for having the boundary that you have. And if we're receiving any of those, I call those 3Ds of disconnect, if we're getting any of those in return, that's data for us to consider. And because it's an indicator of the health of that relationship and the potential of that person to be in a healthy dynamic with us.
Yes. No, it's great. It's just a great tool to have and practice at all times. It is, as I said at the top of the show, it's a lifesaver. And I just want to say this about saying no. No is a charged word. In its best, most positive definition, it is very empowering to say no. It's self-preservation. When you say no, you are respecting yourself. I think there's a huge difference between no for the right reasons and then no because you're coming from a place of fear.
Right.
And that's another episode we'll talk about. We'll do another day, right?
Put it down, Liz.
But some people say no, automatically no, because they're afraid. They're afraid of whatever.
Any reaction.
Yes.
Yeah.
A no is negative to somebody that's hearing it a certain way too. A yes is positive. So
when is a no a positive and a yes is a negative?
When it suits you, possibly that. I think.
Okay.
When that no helps get your point across, as opposed to you saying yes is agreeing, and so you're helping.
But it might be detrimental to say yes.
It could be, absolutely.
Right.
I'm a big fan of the power of yes, but I guess it can work against you too sometimes.
Yeah, well, for those of us with, flimsy or porous boundaries, no is really, it's just a great weapon to have. I shouldn't say weapon.
And a healthy partner
tool.
A healthy partner is going to desire an empowered no versus a yes out of fear, or a yes out of avoiding that discomfort of inconveniencing or disappointing or rocking the boat. And that actually, before I just want to throw in there, if somebody is out there and reading online dating profiles, a big raised eyebrow for me. Raised eyebrow is sort of like before a red flag. But people who are like, I don't like conflict, I don't want to rock the boat, that's a bit of a raised eyebrow for me, because it's like, this person doesn't understand how healthy relationships work. Like in my dynamic, I know that my partner would rather me say no in service of like my own well-being than say yes because I don't want to hurt or disrupt or inconvenience or disappoint him. So, I think that we need to just kind of accept that there is conflict and there is, I don't know.
It's inevitable. And I think that if I was to read someone's profile, and correct me if I'm wrong, is it mostly women that say they don't want conflict as opposed to
men do too.
Men? What? Sorry.
Oh yeah. Oh, men.
Men do say that I don't want conflict.
No,
so that just tells it.
No drama.
So what that says is that they just got out of a very dramatic relationship. And who needs to read that in a profile where you're trying to attract somebody?
Yeah.
That's part of a relationship, not drama, but just interaction. And if there's a little conflict in there, there's nothing wrong with that. But to put that in a profile,
it's not good.
It can't be good. No.
Right.
It's not very inviting, nor welcoming, nor attractive. I mean, listen, that's a whole other episode. Online dating, what to write and not write. Okay, like we all need to have our quiet, private boundaries. You don't need to, advertise them online. Because they're a turnoff, and it does signal that you've had that. Like, no drama. Okay, that means, ding, ding, ding.
Yes, I want a milk toast person that doesn't speak back.
So, okay, this has been great. And yes, you know what? I'm all for coaches and what would you call them? Health professionals? No.
Healing professionals. Yeah.
Pardon me?
Healing professionals.
Well, I've loved this conversation.
Yes. Bex,
And,
let everybody know how they can find you.
Sure. BexBurtonCoaching.com. I have an intentional dating toolkit that's full of incredible, helpful tools that'll support people both energetically and tactically in their love attraction process. And I support mostly independent women, mostly people-pleasing women who have pushed love away because they think it's easier on their own, but when in fact they really want love, but they just don't know how to do it.
So true.
Well, you know what? We're lucky to have you and people like you, and I'm going to include myself, us, because we do a service. We thank you, and yes, and sometimes we need people we can't do for ourselves. We call upon people like us, and it's a huge help. And it is right our life's mission and goal to get people through the tough parts. Absolutely. Okay, so that does it for us today.
Yes.
Okay, let me just hold up my book one more time.
Of course, why not?
Okay.
There we go. Oh, look at that. Very nice. Beautiful.
Oh, shit. Take a picture there.
Where's it available?
Okay. Amazon, Barnes & Noble. Go to my website. You can buy it there. And then you can also go to my website. You can learn more about me and my coaching services. You can go to donebeingsingle.com, learn more about us. You can email us questions, problems, dilemmas. We hear you. We got you. And I think that's it. And then our podcast, wherever you get your podcast. So if you found us here once, you'll find us again. Right?
Yes.
Okay. And we have no boundaries. So anything goes on Done Being Single. Correct?
For the most part.
Okay, go ahead. You know you've been dying to hit me.
I got nothing.
Nothing? Go ahead. All right.
All right, very good. So, see, okay.
Bex, thank you so much.
Thanks, Bex.
This is awesome. You and I will be in touch.
Wonderful.
And yeah, let's just, keep spreading the good word.
Thank you, Bex. Great having you on.
Thank you so much, you too. Appreciate it.
Okay. See you.
I'm Shadow Stevens with my friends Trevor and Robbie. See you next week on Done Being Single.